Alright, recording started. Stream started. Alright. What's good, chat? What's good? What's good? I'm live now. Hola mole. Hola mole. Pokemon no. Twitch.tv/stopper57. Kim Possible. Sorry, that freaking Kim Possible stuck in my head now. Stopper 57. Sorry, that freaking Impossible stuck in my head now. My nose sounds so clogged. In Pokemon Ignore. No, I said it's a freaking. Huh? Oh, I didn't save it. I didn't save that I changed it. Oh my god, I'm dumb. I am not playing Pokemon anymore, and I am playing Pokemon Flux. Impossible. Da 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 da. There we go. There we go. Okay. Let me go to Twitter. Impossible. Sorry, I need to stop that. I want to listen to the new Jack Harris song, but it's like gotten blocked in America for some reason. Oh god. So, they posted it on Blue Sky. Alright. So, I did a lot of stuff off camera. And I got a video for us to watch here. Open this, open this, open this. Okay. So, I've done a lot of stuff off camera here. Talked to you already, right? Bonding with your Pokemon like out and will not evolve unless their friendship can reach a certain level. Okay. Okay, there's some more people to talk to. Is there anything in your trash can? Nope. Have no fear, your favorite mod is here. Cap. Cap. not to hurt your feelings. Oh ho, is that a Flux bracer around your wrist? Well then, I'll make sure you. Then I'm sure you'll make good use of this. Alright. What? No, it's true. Nah, Shadowhunter is my favorite. And Bash. Okay, can I leave? Thank you, bye. Okay, one more room to explore in here, and then I can make it to the Poke Center. Don't listen to him, I'm the favorite child. Cap. I can sense how close your bond is with your Pokemon. Do you want me to check one of your Pokemon? Yes. A View card. Oh, your View card. It clearly adores you. I don't think it could possibly be any more attached. Here, I'd like you to have this. Footprint ribbon. What? I can sense how close your bond is with your Pokemon. Wait, what? You guys need to be holding something. Oh, you have a revive. Thank you, View card. Hug him. I want to give him a hug. Shadow isn't even here yet. That's the thing. Yet. Shadow's my best friend. He'll be here. I hope. So off camera, I did a lot of farming. And I found out a couple of things. So, if I press... I'm always here for you, and I'm not the favorite. Can't believe this. If you press D, I can use my bicycle and super rod quicklier. That's not a word, but we'll run with it. Excuse me, children, before I run you over. I love running over a family of four whilst watching Schlatt, J Schlatt, twitch.tv/J Schlatt. I love it. Listening to their screams as I run, as I feel the bumps. I'm kidding. I don't run people over. I don't even drive that much. I'm kidding. Okay. Organize. We gotta organize, right? I've cleared this whole box of eggs. It was a lot of eggs. So if I go ahead and scroll forward real quick. Yeah. I might have gone a bit overjoyed. Overjoyed? What? Overboard with the Draxi farming, considering I have 2.5 boxes full of Draxis. So yeah, people are gonna need some Draxi. If people need Draxi, hey, I'm here. How many do you need? Release some of those, bro. Nah. And then I also raised the population. Hey, they were supposedly extinct before. I've already repopulated the species with like almost 100 of them. 42 plus 42, 84 plus like the third, maybe 20 something maybe, I don't know. But I caught a ton of shinies off camera as well. If you can't tell, I got a couple Squirmies and a couple of Humborbs. So every Squirmy I'm gonna level up to their two of the Squirmies I'm gonna level up to their evolution. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the Humborb. I'm gonna need to find another Zorua. So if I evolve them, I don't have to go looking for the others. Yeah. I need another Skiddo. I need 2 more Nidoran females and another Cavamy. So I can have 1 of every shiny. That's why I need 13 shiny Draxis and why I have so many of them. And so many eggs. That poor female Draxi is still out there getting ramsacked. I feel so bad. Bro. My level 60 freaking evolution of Draxi is freaking ruining her, bro. Okay, I need to stop before that gets an out of context compilation. Oh my god, the lag. I need to skip the daytime. I need to skip the daytime. So yeah, today I'm gonna do some more exploring around this city. Yeah. So I've gone down here and I've explored over here. I've explored this building, I think, right? What building is this? My friends own way more merchandise than me as a fanboy, yeah. As you can see right here, I have a video from Reggie, who for some reason I'm not subscribed to, on Barony, a game that I'm recently addicted to. Oh, other than Pokemon, I'm already explored that way. I accidentally ran over that child, and I ran over that woman. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Thank God I'm not playing a realistic game where crashes exist. Then I would need to be put down. So let's continue exploring. I believe I've explored everywhere here, so let's see. Pokemon are capable of incredible things. Sometimes I wonder if there's anything they can't do. Oh, hey look. Oh. Why was there zinc in the garbage can? I don't think that's healthy to give to your Pokemon. Your air's actually pick you up wherever you are. Just open your map and choose where to go. Hello. Alba. Whatever you are. Okay, let's see. If I have Flux shards, I'll spend them at the kiosk to get my Flux moves for my Pokemon. But to get them, I'll have to defeat an Ultra Pokemon. Scary. Oh, so I can exchange those. Okay. Pokemon on Gold Coast are always scrapping with each other at dawn. The rivalry seems to make them both stronger. I always like to take a rest before a long journey. I always record my progress in my notebook. That way I won't forget. Only licensed trainers are allowed past this point. You're good to go, though. Welcome, how may I help you? No, nothing. Okay, so here is where I shiny hunted for that Nidoran. So if I equip my bicycle and I just ride back and forth. What was that? I'm gonna look for shinies. I need another Humborb and another Skittle. Okay, I thought that was a shiny Humborb. But it was just the freaking Gullet. Or Gulliet, whatever it's called. That was a Gulliet, okay. It sounds gorgeous. Though its evolution is not. Okay. So let's go ahead and start watching the video. Can I conquer hell as a rat in Barony by Reggie?
Barony is a game about equality, because it doesn't matter whether you're a goblin merchant or a human wizard. We all look the same after being painfully crushed by a boulder.
Hilarious.
This is a first-person RPG roguelike, where you descend floor by floor, acquiring loot and meticulously crafting your build to prepare yourself for the final boss. Giant minotaurs, murderous treasure chests, and even the King of Hell are just some of the myriad horrors that await us in these dungeons. Fortunately, we have access to a wide variety of powerful classes to help us navigate these challenges. But what if we didn't? What if instead we were a rat? Starting off
crazy
wall races with only one life, unable to use weapons, low health, lower attack, and our only ability being a spell to find the nearest piece of cheese, could
hilarious.
We devise a plan to turn this rat into the most powerful being in the universe? Well, that's what we're going to find out in today's video as we brave 25 life-threatening dungeons in an attempt to defeat Baphomet, the Lord of Demons. But first, I have to tell you something. 11 years ago, I had a
okay, it's lagging so badly. Oh wow.
Declaring war on the United States Navy. Don't really remember what caused it. There was
why?
Going on at the time. Ebola. Didn't really like the Fantastic Four movie.
Say that again?
Anyway, I kidnapped a bunch of people and held them hostage in international waters.
You
the
what?
United States wasn't too happy about that, so they blew up my boat with a Tomahawk missile. Funny enough, I was the only survivor. My war against the U.S. Navy was short-lived, but a lot of fun. And I used to miss it until...
Oh my god, is it a World of Warship ad? No, that's a crazy ad. That's a crazy ad. How did you get accepted to that? Bro, what? That's a crazy ad. Who's this?
Spoke with a scientist. That's not healthy. In fact, the side of...
Who was that? You looked like me if I had gray hair and was bald halfway.
Don't do it for me. Do it for your World of Warships anime waifu. Now, let's get back to the video.
What?
Now, before we can become the Rat Messiah and kill Satan, we have to do something even harder, beating the game normally. You see, for our rat build to work, we need access to the Vampire Shaman, which is unlocked by completing 7 different biomes and defeating the bosses Orpheus and Eridice. This was by far the longest and most excruciating part of the plan, so I'll give you the highlights. Create a Goblin Shaman. Congratulations, you are canonically illiterate. Enter the dungeon.
That's crazy.
To death with rocks. New biome, full of friendly goblins. Kill them anyway. Eat rotten food and go blind as a result. Murder an innocent man to steal his backpack. You are now a wanted criminal. Avoid legal persecution.
You killed a merchant? How?
By using an amulet of sex change to cut off your genitals and become a legally new person. Reattach them later with another amulet.
Oh.
Now you've got the backpack and your dick.
What?
Next biome, populated by bugmen. Become an exterminator. Recruit a psychopathic man named the Potato King. He dies almost instantly.
The who?
Short
That's crazy.
Get chased out of the level by their Dami Mommy. First boss, turn into a troll and carefully lobotomize him with a closed fist. Successfully kill this all-powerful wizard and then promptly lose a fight against Derek the cheeseburger salesman. New biome. It's full of Irish immigrants and you're starving to death. Take a moment to appreciate the gameplay of being shanked by dozens of gnomes. Then proceed to the cockatrice's lair fail. You should not have come to the cockatrice's lair. Final boss fight. You are not prepared. All of your teammates die within 30 seconds, and you spend the next 20 minutes accidentally running into cleverly placed pools of lava. Luckily, your enemies were nice enough to put pools
I was
of
running
lava
into the
right
wall.
next to the pools of lava. The fight has been going on for 30 minutes, and you're about to drop dead from hunger. Gamble everything on one last attack. You get unbelievably lucky and kill the boss. Congratulations, you are now a Bayou Baron. Receive some cutscene about how you're the new king, and it definitely won't turn into an evil tyrant like those last guys. Main menu. Alright, finally we've unlocked the
Main menu.
shaman. Now we can begin breaking the game as a rat. But first, some ground rules. The restrictions of this challenge mean that we are only allowed to interact with the outside world as a rat. However, we can interact with our inventory as a vampire.
You ever seen Howie Mandel's penis?
This mostly allows us to do
What?
things like equip armor, read books, and brew potions. But apart from that, it's all rat all the time. So let's get started.
Are you a Roblox?
Crazy ad placement.
Microsoft Rewards has a brand new way for you to earn digital.
We begin by creating our character and loading into the first floor. Gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Rat Meat. If we want this little guy to
Rat
kill
Meat.
Satan, he's going to need to be fairly high level, and the best way to achieve that is by maxing out his skills. There are 16 in total, ranging from swimming to spellcasting. However, since we are a rodent, we won't be able to level up trading or any of the weapon skills, which
Oh,
puts
that's
us at a
crazy.
major disadvantage. But we are also a vampire, which gives us access to one game-breaking ability. This little fella right here.
Levitating?
Is among the cheapest spells in the game, which means spamming it is a viable way to level up your magic and casting skills. However, you will
That's
eventually run out
insane.
of mana, unless you're a shaman, because the shaman starts with a voodoo face mask, which gives him +1 mana regen while shapeshifted. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. So by turning into a rat and casting Levitate 3,000 times, we should be able to max out two of the most important skills in the game on the very first floor. Now listen, I know what you want. I
That's
understand
insane.
the male fantasy. Big muscles,
Whoa.
cool sunglasses, driving fast cars, and crashing into a retirement home at 160 kilometers an hour. Simple stuff, really. But
That's not my fantasy. Wait, that's not my fantasy. What do you mean? I don't. I don't know what you fantasize about. That's not mine. I don't know what you're talking about, bro.
does not include sitting at your desk for 2 hours and casting Levitate 3,000 times. Therefore, I recommend downloading Auto Hotkey and running an automated spellcasting script. Mine's in the description if you're curious. So
What?
simply assume rat form, start the script, and slowly become the most powerful rodent of all time. This process takes a while, so I decided to kill the time by taking a normal shower by myself, washing the dishes, engaging in thought-provoking debates with the fellas down at the homeless shelter, and then chasing women through public parks. This gets me back home with just enough time for another shower before returning to the computer. Briefly looking over our stats, the plan appears to have casting and magic are nearly
Who is this dude, bruh? What am I watching?
maxed out. The only
He's like almost as good as Grox.
The problem is, we're kind of starving to death. So it's time to enter the dungeon in search of food. On the topic of food, the vampire shaman is again very broken. Because much like Todd Howard, the vampire requires a constant supply of human blood. The only difference
That's
is we
insane.
use blood to satiate our hunger, whereas Todd Howard just doesn't want other people to have it. Anyway, blood is our primary food
Huh?
source. However, by transforming to a rat, we are also able to eat conventional types of food. The combination of these two
Was that a
we're
furry?
essentially playing with 200% food abundance, which admittedly is a little hard to appreciate as I starve to death in this dungeon. I start
That's
my food
crazy.
quest by running around the map and recruiting a small posse of rodents, because worst case scenario, we can cannibalize our fellow rat brethren. But that didn't end up being necessary,
Oh,
since
no.
after only 5 minutes we hit a major jackpot. Not only did we find 2 treasure chests full of food, but one of them also contained a chef's hat. In addition to making us look like a beloved Disney character, this hat also increases food nutrition by 20% and buffs the drop rate. With a food supply secured, I made my way back to a safe room. and
What am I
resumed
watching?
rat maxing. After levitating about 75 more times, we had capped out our casting ability. This is where things get nutty. The reward for becoming a legendary caster is that you learn a 0 mana version of the spell Force Bolt. This is usually unlocked around floor 15 or maybe 20. So having access to
Was that the toilet?
fortunately balanced. Furthermore, we can use it to level up up the rest of our magic skill. Doing this unlocked the spell Dominate, which allows us to mind control enemies if they're weak enough. If they're not weak enough, it hurts a lot. It's like Pokemon, but if you gauge the health bar wrong, Ash Ketchum dies in a violent explosion. With that taken care of, I was ready to start the adventure. I began rapidly scurrying around the map, picking up every item I could find, the vast majority of which is complete garbage. But we're getting appraisal experience from identifying it. I know an entire stat based around item identification doesn't seem cool or exciting.
What was Grandpa doing with the Miku freaking thing, bruh?
Such as Amulet of Strangulation or Sweatpants of Circumcision. Truly, not all heroes.
The sweatpants of what? Wait,
We're getting appraisal experience from
the sweatpants of
I know
what?
an entire stat based around item identification doesn't seem cool or exciting, but you'll appreciate it when it saves you from accidentally equipping cursed items, such as Amulet of Strangulation or Sweatpants of Circumcision. Truly, not all heroes wear capes. Apart from
That's
that, I also
crazy.
started my cult of personality by mind controlling a few people and forcing them to beat each other to death.
Was
This
that a
levels
green-
up our leadership skills,
was that a
and with
green
enough
rat?
practice, we can even increase our max follower count. But for the time being, healing potions are hard to come by, so don't get too attached. After scouring the entire floor of all valuable items and signs of life, I reviewed my inventory. We've got plenty of food, a portable alchemy station, and a ring of might, which gives us a 1-pound rat enough strength to effortlessly push a 7,000-pound boulder across the map.
That's
But
crazy.
why does that matter? Well, allow me to explain. In chapter 100 of Baki Do, Yujiro
What?
Hanma rapes Joe Williams while maintaining
He
his
what?
heterosexuality. This is a power scaling feat that informs us how strong a character is. For example,
Whoa now. He what? Wait. Twitch is a joke. Twitch is a joke. Wait, Twitch is a joke. Twitch, hey bro, it's a joke. Well, it's probably real from considering it's Baki, but
if I could successfully beat the homosexual allegations, then internet artists would have no choice but to scale me at a multiversal level. But for right now, we're focusing on Ratme,
What?
and him pushing an entire boulder easily qualifies him as a small building level superhuman, not that
That's-
for floor 1. Now, let's head to the next level. In case you were concerned that things were getting too easy, don't worry. Floor 2 has got you covered, because this symbol right here indicates that within 5 minutes, a gigantic unstoppable minotaur is going to spawn onto the map, hunt us down, and curb stomp us back to spawn. I don't think I can handle levitating 5,000 times again, so we can't let that happen. I begin frantically searching for an escape. Fortunately, I managed to kill an Italian man and use his Daedalus shrine to reveal the
That
exit,
poor
which was
Italian
when I
man.
got a new notification. The Zap Brigade has spawned into the map. I know the Zap Brigade sounds jovial and maybe even heroic, but that's just a name. It's like if the Gestapo started calling themselves the Bubblegum Army. It doesn't
The
really make you
whites.
feel any better when they're pulling your fingernails out. So the good news is, we don't have to worry about the Minotaur anymore, because the Zap Brigade has
What am I
executed
watching?
by firing squad. The bad news is the Zap Brigade is a group of racial purists who spawned onto the map to perform a large-scale ethnic cleansing on anything that's not human. And my friends, we are definitely
Insane.
not human. 1 or 2 shots from their lightning staff and our rat is cooked. They're currently stalking their way across the map, actively looking for us. But what they don't know is I'm actively looking for them, because I want their equipment. Killing them takes forever due to their amulets of magic reflection, but slowly, over the course of 30 minutes, I used my superior rat intellect to separate them and wear them down. After cleaning off the blood stains, we've now got some high-level armor for us to proceed to the next floor. This would be floor 3, but if you enjoy psychological torment as much as I do, then I recommend flipping these levers and going to the secret level, the Gnomish Mines. My therapist keeps telling me George Droid isn't real, and he can't hurt me, but I know better. I've seen the schematics. Similarly, Barony developers will try to convince you that the Gnomish Mines aren't that bad. I mean, look at this well-lit room with all kinds of golden fountains, and the exit is right there. This is terrific, but let me tell you something. They ran out of room in hell a long time ago, and now they're putting all the gnomes here. Outside of these doors is a winding maze filled to the brim with trolls, lightning staff gnomes, and ornery child miners that want nothing more than to excavate the side of your head. Around every corner, there is a 25% chance of getting smoked in the face with a lightning bolt, and there's like
Ow.
600 corners, which is why I chose to mind control the gnomes and have them lead the way. After carefully and meticulously exterminating 70% of the gnome population, I had gained several levels and become relatively powerful. By using bloodletting, we can now two-shot most gnomes and farm them for vials of blood. Now, I'm not sure what's more terrifying, being stalked through a mine shaft by a bloodthirsty magical rat, or realizing it's actually just a naked man in a chef's hat. But either way, we're not here just to terrorize the gnomes. We're also here for the Sphinx's Casque, an artifact helmet of extreme value to spellcasters. It gives 3 armor and 8 intellect. For reference, plus 8 intelligence is a massive difference. Consider it to be the difference between 2 people. One is a normal man who works a job at the hot dog factory and has a wife and kids. The other is a deranged lunatic who spends his free time staring into the sun and taping dead rats to his ceiling. I'm not sure who the intelligent one is, but they're pretty fucking different. Point is, this helmet is going to make our spells do a lot more damage. However, there are 2 issues. First, the treasure room is locked behind a series of impenetrable gates, and second, it's guarded by about a dozen spellcasting traps. Solving problem number 1, the switch to open the gate is located inside this merchant shop. I lure the shopkeeper out of his store, double back, flip the switch, and make my escape.
Where's he shining that in?
Wanted criminal according to the merchant's guild. But it's worth noting that Reggie the Rat is a legally distinct person from Reggie the Vampire. So he's at Reggie the Rat is a legally distinct person from Reggie the Vampire, so he's not wanted. Don't worry though, the Merchants Guild also wants to lynch Reggie the Vampire, but it's just because they're racist, not because he's a criminal. Now with the treasure room open, we have 2 options. Option 1, I carefully examine the room from multiple angles and learn the timing of each trap to formulate a safe plan of approach. Or option 2, I cast a speed buff and run in while pissing my pants. Obviously, I chose the latter.
Of course you did.
Miraculously, this worked, and we secured the helmet. This is a huge power spike for all of rat kind. Now, let's get out of this absolute dump. Floors 3 and 4 were relatively uneventful. However, it's worth noting that usually by this point you're level 5 or maybe 6. We are level 13. Also, we have so much random shit in our inventory that we actually weigh 860 pounds. I cannot fathom how embarrassing it must be to get mind controlled by a morbidly obese rat dragging itself across the floor. But clearly, it's not embarrassing enough to make a difference. Interesting loot on these floors included an amulet of strangulation, which isn't used by us, but there is actually a BDSM GIMP class in the game, which regenerates its mana through autoerotic self-asphyxiation. So we'll leave this here for them. Instead, we're going to take this ring of glory. By equipping it, we basically unlock wall hacks, because all enemies on the level are now marked as pink dots on our minimap. Slowly but surely, we are approaching divinity. Now let's move on to the next biome, the swamp.
What am I watching, dude?
The swamp is best known for its gangs of goblin criminals that will stab you to death at a moment's notice. The closest real-life equivalent to this would be going to a Brazilian favela and telling the local drug dealer that his native language is just gay Spanish. This is a high-level engagement farming technique, assuming you can moderate the casual racism. To my Brazilian viewers, I support you and concede that Brazilian Portuguese is fundamentally superior to Portugal Portuguese. Together, we can defeat the colonial pig dogs. But I digress. The real value in the swamps doesn't come from chewing goblins to death with my big dumb rat.
I don't promote racism.
From this, a pool of water. On one of the earlier floors, I stole an amulet of Olympic swimming from a gnome. At the time, I just did it because the idea of swimming as fast as a shark creeped me out. But now we can use it to our advantage. By equipping the amulet and casting a speed buff, we can blast through the water like a torpedo and power level our swimming in the process.
Was my luck
this process takes a while, and
was my luck just really, really good last night? I mean, it was 5 in the morning. I might have been a bit delusional, but I haven't found a single shiny yet, and I usually can find them really fast. Unless it's in one of these. No, that's a regular Rodilla. Run. I need one more Humborb. And another Skiddo and 2 more of those other things. And I don't have a Rodilla yet. Hello! How was your day today? Oh my god, I'm being called. Give me a minute. Oh my god, bro. bugging in the comments, like, I've returned. My grandma freaking called me. Oops to daisies. Thank you for the follow, Callie Merritt. I just saw that freaking thing. Bum 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 bum. Actually, according to my calculations, I'm back. Alright, put that there. I'm so sorry. My grandma called, and well, I can't ignore my grandma, can I? She's my grandma. Come on. Sure, I don't understand half the things she's saying sometimes, but come on. Alright, let's continue the video.
And you have to be careful not to shapeshift back into a vampire, because, and there's no good way of putting this, you will physically dissolve. Luckily, we didn't dissolve, and after 45 minutes of high-speed training, we achieved 100 swimming, which now lets us walk not only on water, but also lava. That's right,
nice.
Jesus is becoming a thing, and you can't stop it. My first order of business as a religious icon was to wage a holy war against the Merchants Guild. For far too long, they have persecuted us for our beliefs, and it ends here. I went to a jewelry store and lured the shopkeeper out into a wooded area, at which point I began frantically darting between the trees while blasting him with high-level magic. Over time, I was able to slowly whittle down his health bar until he was low enough for me to finish him off with my mouth. This was more painful and less homosexual than it sounds. While picking through the shopkeeper's personal effects, I came across a ring of invisibility. Oh yeah, Rat Jesus the serial killer is now invisible. This is big. Arriving on floor 7, I waste no time destroying the non-believers, which it turns out is quite easy to do when you have the bite force of a crocodile and your enemies can't see you. First,
a bite force of a what? A bite force of a crocodile is insane. I'm not gonna lie. Y'all ever felt a freaking crocodile's bite? That bit hurts. Oh hey, Simba's live. Let's go. Hey, like, my grandma called, and you know for a fact I can't ignore my grandma. Rock that body. Come on, rock that body. Alright. I don't know what's going on. Chat, is it shiny? Nope. I can, like, sense that it's not shiny. I have, like, okay, who is Harley Jam and why? Okay, never mind. She has 2,000 followers. What's up? How do I check my viewer list? I want to like see my viewer list. I don't know, chat. All right. Oops. This. All right. And things are gonna hash.
The loot we found was a ring of slow digestion. Combining this with our chef's hat won't stop world hunger, but it'll stop mine. Admittedly, the value of an anti-starvation is a bit questionable when we have 30.
Was that freaking that one biscuit dude? I don't remember what his name was.
Vials of blood and 150 pounds of chicken legs in our inventory.
That,
to help offset that weight, I also found a pair of metal boots that weigh negative 40 pounds. I was trying to understand that when suddenly I was ambushed by the Minotaur, and this time there's no ethno-fascists here to save us. But we're not the same rat we were 6 floors ago, so I decided to fight the Minotaur in a Goliath-esque battle. By continually refreshing my Adderall speed buff, I was able to effortlessly run laps around the map, stopping every so often to pelt him with force bolts. To motivate my survival instincts, I also used a mental exercise where I pretended that I was a female Twitch streamer, and the Minotaur was my #1 fan. I swear to God, that actually made me run fast.
Was that dude sucking on a shoe? What the hell? Bro, What are the clips that this dude is playing?
Once I started mixing in some slowing spells, it was all over. Little known fact here, but after killing Goliath, David chopped his head off and carried it back home. He was kind of a freak like that. Anyway, I couldn't find the Minotaur's head, so I just picked up his flawless emerald. This is very valuable, but money is a construct of the Merchant's Guild, and we have no need for such vices. So I threw it into the chasm and moved on to floor 8.
What?
Seemingly not content with dying once, the Minotaur came back again on floor 8, but he did even worse this time, because me and the boys kicked the ever-living shit out of him.
damn.
After that, I spent some time using my ring of invisibility to
Was that Itadori jumping him?
NPCs, which power
What?
leveled our stealth. Once we get it maxed out, we'll be able to turn invisible even without the ring. Anyway, I ran
Hilarious.
out of people to stab, so I decided to head to the secret level, nearly getting crushed by several boulders in the process. Heading through the portal, we arrive at the haunted castle. It's just us and our goblin companion named Abdul. Abdul will not be surviving this part, because the haunted castle is like a schizophrenic homeless man on the sidewalk. Harmless when ignored, but once you interact with it, you have put everyone's life in immense danger.
Die, you motherfucker!
Luckily for us, I have a plan. I explore the outskirts of the
I don't want to
castle,
know the context of that
there will
clip.
be 60 tombstones all around it, before proceeding inside to find some very nice loot. These legendary boots give us a huge armor buff as well as more wall hacks. However, by touching them, I have awakened the sleeping beast. Specifically, all 60 of those tombstones out front, yeah, they just spawned super zombies and now they're coming to kill us. Rushing outside, I waste no time casting the levitate spell and walking off the edge of a cliff. As long as we can channel this, they can't get us. Furthermore, our melee range is about 10% longer than theirs. So I spent the next 30 minutes beating every single zombie to death with my bare hands, taking breaks every so often to drink
I'm finally back, Shadow.
slop while I regenerate mana. This power leveled our unarmed skill from 25 to 64. With all of the zombies pummeled into a puree, I went back into the castle to gather the rest of the loot. Side note here,
Just watching this dude beat this dude as a beat this boss is a rock. A rock? A rat. Oh wait. There's a trash can right there. Oh, I've already investigated it, haven't I? I'm dumb.
Floor 9 was relatively uneventful. I spent 20 minutes harassing slime molds to max our stealth, killed another shopkeeper because I liked
Well, Shadow, I was talking with my grandmother. How do you expect me to ignore my grandmother? She's a sweet old lady. I'm not that much of a jerk. Now, you've met my grandmother before. Where are these shinies? Please, can I get a shiny? Please? Please, with sprinkles on top, please? Sorry.
is fit, and I moved on to the next biome, the Sand Labyrinth. Neither a labyrinth nor particularly sandy, this place is better known for making me racist against lava and housing an entire bug society. This whole place is swarming with scarabs, scorpions, and insectoid warriors. Luckily,
great.
I got about 40 vials of blood, so I was able to take my time carefully enslaving an army of bugs
Shadow.
my bidding. Now, in case you're not thrilled by the idea of being drafted into my 1940s-esque chain gang, I invite you to consider the alternative. Because I'm running around the map at 70 kilometers an hour, ripping everyone else apart limb from limb. We're on floor 13 now, which puts us at about the halfway point to reaching hell and killing the devil. Also, Rat Jesus just unlocked his first major miracle, because this spellbook gives us access to some basic healing for ourselves and our followers. This is just like in the comic. Shortly after finding it, I also found a pair of golden Roman laurels, at which point my eyes widened, as I entered the mind state of a man who believes the ghost of John Lennon is attempting to communicate with him through his alpha-getty, because there's no way this was a coincidence. You see, 13 years ago, I got banned from my local church for asking the priest to power scale Jesus. Long story short, one of Jesus's main anti-feats was getting arrested by a bunch of illiterate Romans. Illiterate Romans, Roman laurels, obvious really. Anyway, I believe the game wants us to rectify that in our build by becoming Roman, or I need to refill my medication. Either way, I'm wearing the laurels, and they provide a massive 50% XP buff to our followers, which
that's
nice.
Our
newfound healing abilities
what was that?
To power level them very easily. Moving on to floor 14, I used the power of leadership to convert all sentient life into funny numbers on my stat sheet. Also, I found a very rare single-use amulet of life saving, which allows us to resurrect ourselves if we die, thereby completing our Son of God cosplay. Now we can proceed to the next biome, the ruins.
All you need to do is download buff, let it run in the background as you play, and just like that you'll start earning buff points. These can be used in the marketplace to purchase
You got something to say?
cards, Steam vouchers,
Sure,
or even
so
just
we were
game gear in
today.
general. It's a free program that works
Thank
while
you
you're
for
playing
the
your favorite
berry.
games, and they support things like Valorant, League, as well as countless
She
other
disappeared.
games. What are you waiting for?
She disappeared. Where did she go? Light. She disappeared. She disappeared. Light, clip that. If you're still watching, someone clip that. Someone clip that. Someone clip that and post that in the chat. She disappeared. What? I just wanted to go fishing. She gave me a berry and she disappeared. Light. Oh my god, it didn't freaking add him. Are you still watching? Bro, she disappeared. Oh my god. She disappeared. Where did she go? Don't ask me. I don't know. What? What? I'm scared now, guys. The buff ad. The buff ad. It scared that. Oh my god, she disappeared.
Way to explain this biome is with a story. 2 years ago, I was stopped on the street by a homeless man who almost certainly had hepatitis. He looked deeply into my eyes and said the following: I haven't achieved sexual release in 13 years, but I'm ready to now. That was the most terrified I have ever been prior to unlocking the ruins, because this entire godforsaken biome is swarming with militant gnomes that spend their entire time covering every square inch of the map with improvised traps. If you're lucky, you'll step on a bear trap or maybe an IED, but the less fortunate among us may fall victim to their rohypnol sleeping traps that quickly sedate you into unconsciousness, at which point your ass may as well be a gnomish Waffle House, because 10 to 20 of them are going to pile into it and be violent. Now, I don't know about you, but compare—
Come here! I finally got another shiny! Oh my god, it's so cute! Please. Oh my god, it's so cute. I love it. Oh. I'm sorry. Oh. Did it, what did it do? My ball. Thank you. Okay, it might just be the freaking YouTuber I'm watching. He might be lowering my IQ and my, ability to catch shiny Pokemon. Oh, she had
Compared to getting banged by gnomes, the
oh,
idea
damn.
of catching hepatitis from a street vagrant is starting to sound pretty good. But we're
Whoa.
here now, and that guy's probably at a psych ward. So let's just get through this.
I need like one more Gulliet.
The gnome population. This generally worked well, but every
And I need two of those things. Those
that friendly AI is programmed to hit back
animal
whoever
things.
attacked it, and the other AI is programmed to do the same. So any instance of friendly fire automatically initiates a positive feedback loop of reciprocated violence until someone is dead. Still levels up my leadership though. Anyway, not a huge fan of the ruins, so I made my way to the next secret level, the Mystic Library. This is a magical archive containing some—
Was that the Schwab lab? The Schwab lab thinking about that thing?
of the strongest items
I don't
in the
even know
game.
anymore.
Like many areas in Barony, it is also a very chill place if you're human. To everyone else, it may as well be Rwanda in 1994. That being said, we wasted no time subduing the Hutu librarians and
What's
stealing all
Rwanda?
their relics.
Do I want to
Mostly, it was
know?
a bunch of vaguely useful items until I came across this chest right here. Contained within it was the final piece of our puzzle, the Vampire Doublet. This item disables passive health regeneration but maxes mana regeneration. Combined with our Shaman Mask, we're now generating mana 1200% faster than normal, which means we don't have to settle for free force bolts anymore. Now we can start smacking our enemies with such exciting spells as Invert Penis and Summon Foot Fetishist. With that, myself, Lesser Insectoid,
Huh?
Troll, and Felicia all proceeded to floor 17, where we were immediately mobbed by a gang of street gnomes. In this moment, I want nothing more than the sweet release of death, but I must live on to make the gnomes' lives worse. The good news is that all of this fighting has increased our leadership, and we can now field 8 followers at a time. Battling our way to floor 18, we hear cries of anguish in the distance, which means there's either an Amazon warehouse on this level, or we're getting close to hell. After killing a few demons, my suspicions were confirmed. This is our crossroads. If we go through the normal exit, we proceed toward Baron Herx, but if we take the secret exit, we go to the underworld, which has a pleasant but surprising lack of gnomes. So you better believe I dove into this exit with the same enthusiasm as a burning man jumping into a lake of fire extinguishers. We are now in the underworld, a dark and insidious place teeming with nauseating creatures of the night. Also, it's not wheelchair accessible. In fact, it's not accessible at all. It's mostly just empty space. And since we're the only levitating rat on this team, we'll be doing most of this by ourselves. I flew around the first level, killing every zombie and imp I could find. At this point, we're very over-leveled and we have best-in-slot equipment, so the killing is just for fun. Eventually, I decided to head back to the exit, which actually just takes you deeper into the underworld. This is where most people go, oh no, I'm stuck in eternal damnation. How can I escape? But those people.
Who is that? Is that
With
Epstein?
us, and we're going to keep killing
Was that Epstein?
until we get to the final boss. However, I will admit it is a bit dangerous, because on this floor you start running into shades. These ethereal entities copy your character, equipment, and skills. Except when they copied me, they didn't stay in rat form. So I had to fight a Chad version of myself wielding the legendary spear Gungnir. Shit sucked. After sexually dominating several clones of myself, I proceeded through this portal.
Who's Gungnir? I don't know.
Hell. This isn't how most YouTubers end up here, but it works for me. The very first thing I did in hell was find the Minotaur and kill him all over again. You really thought you could escape me just by going to another plane of existence?
Oh no.
You absolute buffoon. Speaking of which, I also found the Zap Brigade and engaged in a large-scale conflict with them. Unfortunately, they actually smoked me with a lightning bolt and killed me on the spot. However, our amulet of life-saving kicked in and we were resurrected to continue our holy mission. The Messiah has returned. However, that was kind of a one-time thing, so we'll have to be more careful. Anyway, I recruited several demons, and we started working our way through hell floor by floor. My next near-death experience occurred when I got trapped in this courtyard with a rapidly spawning group of hostile goat men. If we weren't invisible right now, we would certainly be dead. Wasn't sure how to get out of this one, to be honest, until I realized we have max leadership, which allows us to recruit goat men. So while invisible, I walked up to the goats, covertly recruited them onto my team, and convinced them to kill all of their friends. From our perspective, this made perfect sense, but to everyone else, this must have appeared as some kind of mass psychotic event. After that, the only thing left was to assault the Cathedral of Sin, so we may as well min-max the rest of our stats before going in. All that was left was alchemy, so I leveled it up by opening my inventory and drinking an exciting mixture of random chemicals and vials of acid. All chemists will see you power leveling your alchemy by drinking BCR head cleaner and say, he can't afford water. Now prepared for our destiny, I stormed the cathedral, mind-controlled the priest, and flipped several levers to open a portal to Mega Hell. Through here is Baphomet, who will not hesitate to kill us on the spot. So I sorted out my inventory, optimized the toolbars, and then dropped 10,000 gold to make us 100 pounds lighter. It's time for Rat Meat to become a legend. Arriving through the portal, we are immediately greeted by several pools of lava and the King of Hell. But for some reason, our first thought is, the craftsmanship on these walls is immaculate. The fight started with us getting mobbed by several demons, while Baphomet attempted pest control via fireball. We handled this part fairly well, but then he swapped to high-level boulder spam, which resulted in about 50% casualties among our followers. The good news is we were absolutely chunking him whenever he'd pop up, and our amulet was reflecting most of his spells. Eventually, myself and 2 of our imps cornered Baphomet and mag dumped him down to 10% health, at which point we finished him off by biting him to death. Baphomet sunk into the lava, and the game rewarded us by making me fight 2 Minotaurs at the same time. Actually, not as bad as it sounds. With the Primeval defeated and the entire Minotaur bloodline extinct, I fought my way to the exit portal and returned to the land of the living, at which point we got an epilogue explaining that we have defeated the devil and no mortal or immortal can challenge our power. For a rat, I'd say that's pretty damn good. So there you have it. We started off as a lowly rodent, and
it took you long enough, Light.
We became a god. I'd like to thank the Minotaur.
There was this lady earlier who just disappeared.
For supporting the channel, and
I like grabbed a. She gave me some sort of berry, and then I kid you not, she just disappeared. She was out of there. I'm gonna have to look back in the recording just to record that and show that to y'all. Because that was insane. And this was a great video. Okay, close that, please. Thank you. They actually hatched the egg. Okay, that's one of the freaking 18,000 Draxies. Open this up. Okay. Beautiful playlist for my stream videos. I believe, yeah, next is Robco's Secret. We got a lot more videos to watch. Alright.
Love games, but hate the grind?
No, I love the grind.
Invincible, unimaginably.
Happiness.
How's it going, guys?
Great.
Nate here.
What's good, Nate? This is Robco's Secret by Epic Nate. The lag is not sponsored. Wow. Good lord. Probably because my sister's on Fortnite. That's probably why.
And as many of you are probably
Y'all don't know how disappointed I am.
aware, over the past couple of months, we've been working on an enormous 3-part Fallout Mysteries iceberg. In a dramatic attempt to document and catalog virtually every major mystery and theory present in the franchise, and wrap it all together with a neat little bow. Now, while the third and final episode of that iceberg has actually still yet to be completed, it should be out in the next week or two. Today, I'd like to take a bit of a pause and focus on a specific topic that we covered earlier in the series, which I think deserves way more time to dissect than the 2 or 3 minutes we originally gave it. That being the question of what role ghoulification played in the pre-war world. Ghouls are, of course, ubiquitous creatures in the Fallout franchise.
What does ubiquitous
really helped
mean?
to
I don't
define
even...
the tone of the games.
Oh god, lag.
Gangrenous, zombie-like mutants that were once human, but have been transformed by radiation, and maybe something else, into one of the Fallout franchise's most defining elements. Beyond their unfortunate physical appearances, ghouls have several unique characteristics that distinguish them from their smooth-skinned counterparts, including incredibly longer, perhaps
This
infinite,
buddy to the
potential
shiny
lifespans,
box.
an immunity to radiation, and a radically reduced need for food and water. You probably already knew all that, but it makes for a more dramatic introduction. Regardless, the question we seek to ask today is that if ghouls are such a force in the wasteland, if they're so common, they're all over the place, and they're simply a product of too much radiation exposure, then shouldn't this phenomenon have been present in the pre-war world as well? I mean, radiation was all over the place back in the day. In the Fallout universe, the United States still deployed its atomic arsenal in 1945. People were still studying radioactive stuff all the time, and that's not to mention the insane amount of radiation-producing items which people were being exposed to on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Surely, ghoulification was a force in society before the bombs came down.
It must have been.
Right? Well,
I think so.
Indeed it was. Throughout the
I'm
franchise,
with
we
you there,
can
Gary.
encounter several ghouls who actually turned before that fateful day in 2077.
Really? I don't remember that.
There's a surprisingly insane amount of lore on this subject that takes some, shall we say, very interesting twists that I'd like to share with you. Thus, in today's video, we are going to be investigating the strange story of pre-war ghoulification. We'll start off with a bit.
They should make a Fallout game for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm just saying.
Of ghoul biology, studying the exact changes that occur in these creatures, and more specifically, what exactly causes people to turn, and why it seems as though only certain people are able to become ghouls.
Because they're special.
From there, we'll explore the known instances of people who ghoulified before the Great War, examining what each can tell us about the phenomenon, and some of the stranger conclusions we're forced to come to, before finally introducing some of the most bizarre pieces of this puzzle and trying to put it all together and make sense of it. Thus, our stage is set for another round of Fallout detective work.
Yay!
So, pour out a glass of your finest Old Royale, turn up your Rad Kings volume,
I don't drink.
as we dive into the curious case of Fallout's pre-war
And I got water.
lore.
Let's
But
go.
first, a quick word from today's video sponsor.
Get your bag, gang. Get your bag. Ghoulogy.
Alright, in order to best understand pre-war ghoulification, I think it's important that we start off with an understanding of ghoulification more generally. A bit of Ghoulology 101.
Ghoulogy.
Specifically, regarding what exactly causes someone to turn into a ghoul, as, believe it or not, radiation may not be the only factor, and there are some lesser-known effects particularly worth dissecting. And perhaps the best place we can begin our Ghoulology is at Fallout 3's Underworld.
Huh?
Buried beneath the ruins
Oh,
of the
that
Museum of
place.
History in
I forgot about
Washington,
that.
DC. The Underworld is a sprawling underground metropolis populated exclusively.
It has been like freaking 6 years since I've played Fallout 3 in New Vegas. I gotta play Fallout. I gotta play these Fallout games again. I'm pretty sure I said in another video that I really wanted them to remaster Fallout 1 and 2. Those would be so fun to play if they were remastered into a newer version.
By ghouls, who have sought out the community as a refuge from the discrimination and prejudice they encounter elsewhere in the wasteland, and are excited to be around their kin. As the player approaches the entrance to the museum, we'll be stopped by Willow, a sentry
Who?
guarding the gates, who will demand to know our motives, but will always grant us permission to enter, and will happily answer a few questions the lone wanderer may have about her and her people. Carol will explain all the basics of ghoulification. Caused by rad exposure, ghouls don't need to eat or drink as
Wait,
much.
didn't he
Some
call
do lose
didn't he call her Willow?
have, and the
Wait,
museum. We'll be stopped by Willow,
Yeah.
a sentry guarding the gates, who will demand to know our motives, but will always grant us permission to enter, and will happily answer a few questions the lone wanderer may have about her and her people. Carol will explain all the
Terrell.
basics of ghoulification, caused by rad exposure.
You called her Terrell.
Ghouls don't need to eat or drink as much. Some do lose their minds and go feral. All the basic stuff that you probably already know, and that I'll skip most of. However, interestingly, when asked
Oh, there's a
about
super
how
mutant.
the Underworld deals with being so close to a nearby super mutant stronghold, Willow will say something funny. That the mutants don't really bother her people, and seem to see ghouls as their kin. Take a listen.
really?
Those knuckle draggers? Nah, they don't bother us ghouls. Maybe they see us as kin or something, I don't know.
Once we're inside the community, we can encounter a dozen or so more ghouls, who will ironically treat the player with contempt and discrimination for being a smooth skin. An interesting reversal. We can have more
Smooth skin
conversations
is
about
crazy.
the condition, but little additional insight will be offered by their dialogue. The residents of the Underworld all just repeat the basics, really. However, within the local infirmary, humorously referred to as the Chop Shop, and run by the
crazy.
enigmatic Dr. Barrows, we can gain some more valuable intel that isn't offered anywhere else. You see, Dr.
Right there.
Barrows considers himself
Gotcha.
to be, and very likely is, the world's foremost expert on ghoulification.
Shiny
He
Skeeto,
spent
the last one that I
last
need.
century meticulously studying the condition in hopes that it could help him better treat his patients. And oddly enough, Barrows even thinks it might be possible to develop a cure for ghoulification.
Huh, I forgot about this freaking
To
dude.
treat several patients who
Oh.
come down with a mysterious
That did a lot of damage.
which he claims is weird because ghouls are actually supposed to be immune to the overwhelming majority of infections. Interesting.
Though the real reason I bring this guy up
Alright, second
has to do
Skeeto.
with the research terminal he has in his office, where Dr. Barrows has been storing several of his more significant discoveries and notes.
Raspberry.
Now, be advised that in the release version of Fallout 3, this terminal is actually bugged. And while it can be accessed, like you can sit down and open the terminal up, none of the entries are readable. It's not that Bethesda cut them from the game, but the developers seem to have messed up by making the entry names too long and corrupting their ability to be selected. Nonetheless, this can be fixed with an unofficial patch, or we can just directly extract the entries from the files. Regardless, one entry
I'm taking the
titled
former.
Examination of the Post-Necrotic Human reads as follows. Quote, "In my 7 dozen years studying the ghoul anatomy, I discover more and more evidence to support my theory on the nature of the not radiological human."
I don't know what that noise was. I heard I think that was my cat. I think my cat came in here and yelled at me. Pretty sure that's what that was anyways. Okay, I think I might take a little break. I got freaking something else to do real fast. So, I shall return here in a minute. BRB. I'm back. I'm back. Alright. I'm back, bitches! Oh, I was supposed to open my stream so I can go and take the link and post it in the Discord servers, and I'll link it in the description. What? I'm back again. Stopper's back. Don't tell a friend. Actually, tell your friends. If they're just like random necessity-ism, you know. Alright, let's see. Open that. Alright.
Or ghoul, as they are commonly called. In summary, I theorize that our unnaturally long lifespan is due to a mutation within the autonomic nervous system of certain individuals following exposure to specific combinations of ionizing radiation with wavelengths below 10 picometers. This mutation, it seems, disrupts the normal process of decay in the neurotransmitters along the spinal cord. Specifically, the transmitters affected are those responsible for cardiac and respiratory function in a healthy human. According to my studies, these transmitters are continually regenerated after mutation, carrying sufficient oxygen to sustain the life of the subject while being insufficient to retain skin elasticity and avoid necrosis. The result of which is the corpse-like appearance of post-mutation humans. It should be noted that exposure to radiation typically
I didn't put my headphones on. That's something I didn't do. Hold on. I forgot that I was putting my headphones on. So y'all don't hear the video twice. Alright. Headphones are in.
In sickness followed by death, and the X factor that will lead to the mutation upon exposure in lieu of the typical outcome remains unknown to this research. In the coming months, I will be assembling my findings on this subject into a full study. End quote.
My Lovesack couch adapts to it all.
Your what?
Elevated with the latest tech.
So, in this document, Dr. Barrows is providing us what is essentially the Fallout universe's best and most scientific description yet on the exact biology of ghouls, noting that their unnaturally long lifespans seem to be the product of a mutation to their central nervous systems, which disrupts the decay of neurotransmitters. More importantly for our purposes, though, Dr. Barrows is suggesting that radiation exposure alone isn't the only cause for ghoulification. Not everyone can become a ghoul, that the process can only take place in a select number of individuals who have a certain X factor, or who have been exposed to a certain X factor, and those who do not have that going for them will simply expire normally when exposed to too many rats. So,
Okay.
the obvious question this terminal leaves us to ask is, what might that X factor be? Well, there are a couple of theories that have gained some steam in the community that I think are worth sharing with you. Perhaps the most popular suggestion out there is that this X factor could be genetic in nature. That certain people are carriers for a certain gene, or perhaps genetic mutation, that allows their nervous system to interact with radiation in a way that results in, well, you know. The exact nature of this genetic component, whether it's hereditary or dominant or recessive, or if it's just a totally random mutation, is up for debate. Across the Fallout franchise, there are a few examples of family members who have been ghoulified at once, which would imply a hereditary factor, but that's dubious. Furthermore, this gene would have to be a bit more common than Dr. Barrows lets on, as across the games, there are several locations where the player can visit entire groups
Sorry, I'm
of
looking
people
through.
who are ghoulified at the same time. Camp Searchlight was an old NCR outpost established on the fringes of the Mojave with a small garrison of a couple dozen men to help monitor the frontier, and specifically slow down legionary encroachment in the region. Alas, unbeknownst
Yeah, I don't
to
have
most of the men
Rodillo
until it was
or
too
Pal
late,
Gillette,
the camp was
but
built on top of
I have
a newly
Bosquito,
raised
I have
disposal site, which was
one of the
one day breached
Nidoran, I
by
need 2
legionary
more.
saboteurs,
I
causing
need one, I
virtually
believe
all
I
of
might
the
have
troops
one
to
more,
ghoulify
actually.
in a couple of days.
I need
In
one more
Fallout
Gillette.
4, we know that the entire crew of the Yangtze, a Chinese nuclear submarine, was ghoulified at once in the aftermath of the Great War, leaving no exceptions. There are dozens more examples of this thing happening, but you get the idea. In the Fallout universe, there are a bunch of instances of people, groups of people, unrelated, who all got ghoulified at the same time. And the point stands that if Dr. Barrows' X Factor really is genetic, then this shouldn't be such a common thing to occur. Either that, or the gene must be considerably more common than Barrows suspects. The other big popular theory, which addresses our above concerns, and I like a little bit better, is that the X Factor isn't genetic at all, but rather has to do with some limited exposure to the forced evolutionary virus. The forced evolutionary virus, or FEV, was an artificial virus developed by the old US government capable of forcing changes in a person's genome and organ system. Originally,
Rodillo are
its
starting to
purpose
spawn.
was meant to counter various new emergent diseases in the old world, but eventually, military scientists discovered it could be modified to create ultra-resilient, ultra-cheap super soldiers, who they hoped to eventually leverage for military gain. Alas, the government's research was never finished, and before the FEV could be perfected, the Great War broke out. In the ensuing chaos, several FEV labs were breached, and thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of survivors were exposed to variants of it, creating the modern super mutant that we know of today. Super mutants have been rendered sterile by the FEV, but are able to create more of their kind by capturing normal humans and dunking them into FEV tanks, a particularly sinister, almost zombie-like behavior. Nonetheless, many players, and even a couple Fallout developers, have suggested that some kind of minor, much more limited exposure to the FEV virus is the X factor that Dr. Barrows is mentioning in his research. And there's good reason for this. After the release of Fallouts 1 and 2, Interplay writer Chris Avellone set about creating what has since been dubbed the Fallout Bible. A collection of documents, notes, and interviews that he intended to use to create something resembling a consistent cosmology for the Fallout universe. It should be noted that Avalon's Fallout Bible isn't really canon, and especially hasn't been since Bethesda's acquisition of the IP. But it does provide us with some interesting insights regarding what the original developers were intending for several topics. In the first volume of this Bible, when describing how the residents of Vault 12, now known as Necropolis, were ghoulified, Avalon asserts that FEV exposure was an essential ingredient, stating, quote, "When the West Tech research facility was hit, it shattered the FEV storage tanks on levels 4 and 5 and released FEV into the atmosphere. Through some means, perhaps propelled by the explosion, the virus was able to reach the ghouls quickly, and the mutation process began even as the radiation was rotting away their bodies. How the virus was able to survive the blast without being sterilized is unknown. It would depend on what type of warhead cracked the West Tech facility, like an egg." End quote. Additionally, Chris Taylor, Fallout's lead designer, said the following, quote, "Super mutants are humans with no or minimal radiation damage who have been exposed to FEV. Ghouls are humans with significant radiation damage who have been exposed to minimal amounts of the FEV. Furthermore, this FEV exposure might also explain something we heard at the beginning of the discussion. Remember when Willow, the Underworld Sentry, explained to us that the nearby super mutant hordes left them alone for some reason?
Those knuckle draggers? Nah, they don't bother us ghouls. Maybe they see us as kin or something, I don't know.
Perhaps it's not just that the super mutants recognize ghouls as fellow muties, but that they specifically recognize them as fellow creatures who have already been infected by the FEV. They have no desire to turn them because they've already been turned. I mean, the super mutants will attack mirelurks, giant ants, and all sorts of radiation-changed creatures. It's kinda odd that ghouls are given this special privilege of being left alone. Unless they may already share FEV exposure. As you can probably tell, I'm a fan of this explanation, because not only does it put Willow's quote into this new, neat context, but it also can provide justification for those mass ghoulifying events. You know, if FEV sites were hit across the United States at the breakout of the Great War, then it would make sense that it could have leaked into the atmosphere, and dozens, hundreds of people could have been exposed at once, providing justification for them all to ghoulify. Furthermore, it could help explain why ghouls were so rare in the pre-war world, despite an abundance of radioactive developments. Even still, though, this theory is not without its own issues and detractors. Tim Kaine, one of the original creators and developers of the Fallout franchise, disagrees with Chris Avellone and has argued that ghouls are a radiation-only creation. And in a later version of the Fallout Bible, Avellone even ended up changing his mind and accepting Kaine's argument. Chris Taylor, however, has remained steadfast in his FEV hypothesis. Still, though, Bethesda seems to have moved in a different direction already with Dr. Barrow's terminal. By saying that there is a certain X factor involved, they're explicitly implying that it's not just radiation anymore. So, it's hard to rule either way. Finally, while we're on this topic, it's worth asking what causes some ghouls to go feral and others to retain their mental faculties.
So,
interestingly,
hold on. So Rodillo also spawned in the desert, but I think Pouchlet also spawned in Alba Forest. Alba Town, which you're gonna have to explore. Alba Academy. Alba Woods. And there's also a Pokemon, a static spawn in the Frygate Strait. Yeah, Lediba, Shermish, Charut. No, they do not spawn. Magif, Corsuave, Squirmy. There's a 1% chance for Zorua. They do not spawn there. Huh. But there is a chance for Zorua. Okay. So I guess I'm gonna have to stay here until I get a pouch lip. At least a pouch lip. Good lord. This.
Enough. Barrow's broken research terminal has an entry on this
Well, 2
phenomenon
pouch
as
lips.
well. Titled
Because I can catch more Revila later.
Post-necrotic dystrophy. It reads, quote, "The brain structure of a feral necrotic posthuman indicates that the regenerative ability of neurological systems that affords necrotic posthumans their longevity does not extend into the higher reasoning functions of the brain itself. This is a condition that I refer to as ferocious post-necrotic dystrophy. As the reasoning and higher order thinking portions of the brain deteriorates, the posthuman subject becomes increasingly hostile, giving into a carnal need to feed as opposed to the capacity for thinking and reasoning that a typical necrotic posthuman retains. It remains unclear what exactly precipitates this change in biology and psychology. But anecdotal evidence seems to indicate that non-social ghouls, or those in isolation, are more prone to develop the condition." So, Barrows is stumped on this question, attributes feralness to a breakdown in brain chemistry, which may be caused by social isolation. Loneliness, essentially. We'll have more to say about this idea later on in the video. But nonetheless, now that we've learned a little bit about what's behind ghoulification and some of the mystery associated with it, let's move on and turn our attention to some specific examples of ghouls who we know turned before the bombs fell, as this gets us much closer to the root of our question and offers us an insane, and sometimes surprising, amount of insight regarding what the old world knew about the phenomenon. Thus, without any further ado, let's do further. So, the first proto-ghoul that we're going to investigate, and really the first one to ever appear in the franchise, is Desmond Lockhart.
Who?
A mysterious Great War survivor whom the Lone Wanderer can encounter during Fallout 3's Point Lookout DLC.
Oh.
Desmond Lockhart was a former British intelligence operative
British?
who sometime in the 2070s figured out that the Great War was imminent and unavoidable. So he took a radical step to ensure his survival. Here's how the Fallout 3 official game guide describes his character. Quote, "Before the bombs dropped, Desmond was a player in international intelligence at the highest levels. Desmond's motives and obsessions have been scarcely affected by the apocalyptic devastation of the planet. Desmond and those he would consider his peers knew for some time that the Great War was inevitable. Desmond himself could have been directly involved in the actions leading up to the nuclear exchange. Facing atomic annihilation, global leaders and members of the intelligence community made their personal bids for survival in the new world. FEV, cryogenic stasis, AI consciousness, even in Desmond's case, controlled exposure to normally lethal doses of radiation were among the wildly risky and experimental techniques pursued in the name of survival in a world without modern infrastructure. Old rivalries and vendettas were not forgotten in the ashes of nuclear winter. Those who managed to survive quickly set about doing what the bombs had not, wiping out any remnants of the old world
Well, that's not cool.
that may be a threat to their personal and political agendas."
Nice.
End quote. Lockhart is one of Point Lookout's main characters, as the DLC's primary quest line centers around a jockey for power between himself and his
Jockey?
arch-nemesis,
Like
a
chicken
fellow
jockey?
Great War survivor named Professor Calvert.
Calvert and Desmond were evidently
Is
going
that a
at it
brain?
well
I
before
forgot
the
about that,
bombs
dude.
fell. Don't. But they haven't let the apocalypse stand between their mutual hatred of one another. While Desmond preferred ghoulification, Calvert's mechanism of survival was to preserve his brain in a secret underground lab where he's remained for the last 250 years.
That's nasty.
Calvert's experiments have gifted him with the rather unique ability to communicate telepathically with others, and by the time of the player's arrival in Point Lookout, he leads a small band of tribal warriors who worship him as a god. Calvert, hilariously, seems to hate these people and resents them, but hopes to leverage his small army into turning him into a real god and achieving what he calls psychic dominion over the region. Desmond Lockhart, however, is the one thing standing in his way.
Okay, let me go ahead and freaking wait until nighttime. Cause the pouch on at night. Get out of here, that fake all game.
The lone wanderer will ultimately have to decide between helping the power-mad brain in a jar achieve his divine dreams, or helping Mr. Lockhart stop him by installing a psychic jammer and putting the brain out of its misery. While Desmond's motivations for opposing the crazy professor are purely personal and selfish, and he's actually one of the rudest and most disrespectful characters in the game, he is considered the good karma option. And like any heroic NPC, he drops an ear when slain if you have the contract killer perk. So
What?
he's a sort of anti-hero to Calvert's villain. Unfortunately, no matter which side the player chooses, Desmond will share very little about his past. When asked up front about it, he simply tells us that it's none of our business and to bug off. Indeed, the only reason we know he's a pre-war ghoul is because the official game guide spells it out. He never actually opens up about it. Though there are some vague hints that something's special about him. For whatever reason, Desmond's been able to preserve his hairline despite ghoulification.
That's insane.
But alas, aside from Mr. Lockhart, Fallout 3 doesn't really give us any more pre-war ghouls to look at. However, thankfully,
Surprisingly, he didn't get male pattern baldness at 250 isn't sad. I'm not gonna lie.
Fallout 4 very much does. So, let's take a look at the several pre-war ghouls found in Boston, Massachusetts. First up, let's talk about Wayne Gorski. He's unique among many of the ghouls on this list, in of it that he had no idea he was becoming one. Nor is it entirely obvious or not that his transformation occurred before the war. Gorski's cabin can be found near a radio tower on a desolate patch of land in Fallout 4 on the northwestern side of the map. Upon inspection, the isolated structure seems to be of little significance.
Probably, yeah.
But the nearby root cellar we can access tells a more intriguing story. Within the cabin's cellar, we can find the small workshop of a madman, alongside a feral ghoul named Wayne Gorski, as well as Gorski's terminal, which contains a series of entries documenting the man's story. Evidently, in the lead-up to the Great War, Mr. Gorski was a survivalist and doomsday prepper of sorts, who harbored a limitless suspicion of the federal government's activities. Apparently, in the spring of 2077, a new radio tower began construction nearby Wayne's cabin, which he believed was being used as some sort of government mind control or manipulation device. As he explains in his terminal, Gorski's only rational response would be to build a nuke and blow the thing up himself. Indeed, throughout his workshop, we can find an assortment of contraband-like materials, as well as an actual mini-nuke just sitting on a bench. It's not clear why he didn't just use the mini-nuke or where he got it from, but I digress. It would appear that Wayne failed to take the necessary precautions before tinkering with such radioactive material, and inadvertently got himself ghoulified. In the end, the Chinese would beat him to the punch, and his efforts would be rendered redundant by the Sino-American War anyway. It remains
is unclear when exactly Wayne turned and went feral. His terminal entries suspect it was sometime around the summer of 2077, but we can't be sure. He could have been down here for a few years or transformed only after Massachusetts was hit. Oh, one more thing. Going back to Dr. Barrows' terminal entries in the underworld, you have to wonder if Gorski's isolation, being alone in this bunker for at least 2 centuries, is part of the reason he went feral rather than retain his brain chemistry like Lockhart or other dudes. Perhaps Bethesda was making that point on purpose. But I digress. Let's move on to the next pre-war Bostonite ghoul. The next character we'll be taking a look at is probably the most recognizable from this list. Meet Eddie Winter. Once upon a time, before bombs rained on the city from on high, Eddie Winter was Boston's most notorious crime boss. The sinister Irishman led a gang responsible for a string of murders, kidnappings, and various chem deals. Indeed, he was such a prolific figure that we can actually read about him in many of the newspaper articles published before the Great War. Nick Valentine, our synthetic detective friend,
that's
told us
definitely not creepy at all.
his consciousness and memories from a cop of the same name, who evidently had been moved from Chicago to Boston specifically as a part of a plan to catch Eddie Winter in a mission codenamed Operation Winter's End. The
Eddie
original
Winter,
human
Ethan
Nick
Winters,
Valentine was
huh?
apparently hot on Eddie's trail, having busted a number of his associates and proving immune to the gang's attempts at bribery. In an effort to get some payback, Winter had Valentine's young wife killed,
Damn.
earning him a spot as one of the Fallout franchise's most hated characters. In Fallout 4, Synth Valentine will reveal all of this to the player after you've maxed out his affinity ranking. Despite being an android, he feels an incredibly close connection to the man his personality was based off of, and his experience has brought him tremendous trauma. Fortunately, he has an opportunity to avenge his namesake. You see, like Desmond Lockhart, Eddie Winter had been well aware of the impending nuclear battles, having allegedly been tipped off by some government folks in his pocket, and took steps to ensure his survival. Partnering with a brilliant but corrupt and mysterious doctor, Winter secured samples of radioactive material and began the process of ghoulifying himself through composed exposure, sometime in September of 2077. Here's how he describes his transformation and motives in a holotape, originally destined for his romantic partner, a woman named Claire.
Claire, it's me, Eddie. It's been too long, I know. But I'm okay. We're okay. I know it's weird, me disappearing just when the heat died down. There's a reason. What we talked about, it's happening. Soon. Bombs, missiles, I don't know what. But the end is coming. I can't even tell you how much I paid my cloak and dagger friend for this info. So I guess me building that shelter was a smart idea after all, huh? But look, baby. There is one more thing. The reason I haven't been around for a while. You know those idiot brothers at Wicked Shipping? The ones smuggling the radioactive material? I put the screws to them. Got some of the stuff. I've been working with a doctor in East Boston. Guy's a genius. Listen, I know it sounds crazy, but he had this theory. The right kind of radiation exposure at the right amounts, they can change human cells. Mutate them. Baby, I can live forever. Yeah, I know. It could kill me. I'm willing to chance it, but I can't risk losing you. So I'm the guinea pig. And I've been getting treatments. But don't worry. I'm fine. More than fine. I feel great. Amazing, even. Eventually, this war will blow over. And when it does, I'm gonna walk out into Boston and pick up where I left off. I'm gonna own the future.
Thus, for the last 2
That's
centuries,
okay.
a ghoulified Eddie Winter has been quietly controlling elements of Boston's radar network from his still-standing bunker beneath the Andrews train station. During the companion side quest, Long Time Coming, the player and Nick Valentine will track down the ghoulified crime boss to his shelter,
and once and for all, deliver justice to his victims. 2 centuries in the making. There will be a final confrontation between the crime boss and Nick. Eddie will initially try to talk his way out of it before getting angry, and Valentine will put the ghoul out of his misery, assuming you don't beat him to it. Nonetheless, Winter, next to Lockhart, is probably our best documented case on pre-war transformations, and we can infer a good bit from his dialogue and holotapes. In his message to Claire, he claims Army intelligence tipped him off to the impending Great War after a significant bribe, that he was smuggled radioactive material by the folks at Wicked Shipping, and he was working with a doctor from East Boston who had theorized that ghoulification could be achieved. Notably absent from Winter's account of events, though, is the presence of any additional X factor that we've been talking about. Radiation is the only element he discusses, so perhaps Bethesda is moving away from that idea, or Winter just didn't know the full scoop of what the doctor was doing. Like Desmond, Eddie
Why
was
did you
somehow
say it
able
like
to
that?
retain his hairline, but not only that, his vocal cords don't seem to have been disrupted either. He still sounds like his normal self when you meet him in his bunker. You know how ghouls have that croaky voice, the "hello, darling"? He doesn't have it. Perhaps this doctor friend of his had a solution. But regardless, with Winter now dissected,
He's wearing a
let's
wig.
move on to the next of Fallout's totem ghouls, who may have known Eddie's doctor, Research Assistant Peters.
Who?
South of Bunker Hill, in an unmarked home within the Charleston neighborhood of East Boston, the player can enter to find the property infested with feral ghouls. On the top floor, locked in the attic, will lie a feral glowing one, named Research Assistant Peters. While the ghouls themselves obviously don't offer much dialogue, a series of holotapes left behind by the research assistant would tell her story. They're a little long, like 5 or so minutes in total, but I'm going to play the whole series because I think they're super good and worth listening to. If you would like to skip this part, there will be a time code on screen for you to jump to now. Anyway, here are Peter's journal entries.
Entry 3, recorded by Research Assistant Peters on February 26, 2077. Time, it's 12:35 hours. Subject's direct radiation exposure level increased to 2 sieverts per 24 hours. Intravenous fluid intake increased to 1 liter.
Oh, survey farm.
Subject reports localized pain in frontal and parietal lobe, accompanied by severe nausea, vomiting on average, 3 to 6 instances per 12 hours. Solid
Great,
foods
I'm
no
getting
longer
jumped.
viable by oral intake. Other symptoms include general weakness and weakness, bleeding of gums, severe abdominal cramps, and diarrhea.
Wrong button.
Possibility of intestinal bleeding. Shortness of breath also an issue. I will now describe changes in mood or thought process. I have never in my life felt as horrible as I do right now. Discomfort is almost too much to bear. I often contemplate termination of this trial. But I know it'll only be a few more days.
That's where that girl disappeared.
Then I can administer the serum. I'll get our contract renewed. Serum will go to the market, and it's going to help people. It's really going to change the way we live. And me, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Cyclical thoughts. No other developments to report. Entry 6, R.A. Peters. It's March 1st. The subject has reached saturation threshold safely. Taking measurement now. Confirm 6 sieverts. Rapid fluid loss due to fever. Upped IV intake. All previous symptoms are still present. Tissue damage visible on arms, neck and hands. Necrotic sloughing of the skin. Topical and ingested antibiotics applied to control infection. Now injecting first dose of serum 42BA7 into bloodstream. No immediate effects observed. Animal trials yielded results in less than...
You already know she dead. So.
Second dose of sample 42BA7.
Oh my god, there's another one.
Injected hours ago. No effect. No effect. I contacted the lab to terminate this trial.
Oh.
I need a doctor. Hang on. What's that? Oh, my teeth. Oh, several teeth dislodged. Feels like necrotic tissue damage throughout the whole cavity. Serum is ineffective at toxic levels. Request to terminate trial was martyrs are to remain in quarantine for the duration of the experimental period. I understand. I'm going to die. That's obvious. It's right here. Heart failure. If you would, Dr. Roberts, please deliver the following to my family. Mom, Dad, I love you. Yes, I volunteered for this. It sounds crazy, but I believed in it. Probably nothing left worth bearing. Just knowing. Oh, no. That's a bit too sentimental. Let me think about it.
So, as a part of a medical
Okay.
trial in March of 2077, Peters deliberately gave herself radiation poisoning in order to test the effectiveness of a new cure serum. However, after administering herself the cure, her symptoms failed to improve, and her requests to terminate the experiment were just ignored. Now, you'll note,
Insane.
while Peter is locked upstairs behind a pickable door as a glowing one, there are like 10 other ghouls in this property if you include the ones on the porch, which is completely unaddressed by
More.
the days. And even weirder is that this house is clearly furnished to only support one person. It's odd. What are 10 ghouls doing in here if it was just Peters? The story that I think Bethesda is trying to tell is that sometime near the end of her life, Peters must have realized what was happening to her, that she was becoming a monster. She may not have understood ghoulification, but she realized she was a danger, and in response, somehow mustered up the strength to lock herself in her attic for the sake of anyone who may come looking for her. Or maybe she was found by loved ones who couldn't bring themselves to call the government and just hit her in the attic. After the Great War came to pass several months later, other ghouls attracted...
Oh my god, I don't care about Windows 11 Pro, please.
Attracted by the fact that there was a glowing one upstairs, slowly began to trickle in, hence constituting the horde.
Was that a shiny one? Probably not.
The exact realities of Peter's experiment are also suspect. I mean, there's already a cure for radiation poisoning. It's called Radaway, and we can find it everywhere. It's extremely cheap. So, what was she doing? Perhaps working on an alternative? The consensus online seems to be that her boss, this Dr. Roberts, purposely gave her an ineffective placebo rather than the real serum, which may very well be the case. Perhaps Peters was unknowingly in a...
I'm gonna get one more shiny before I end stream, or
possible
before the video
the serum
ends.
was just ineffective, or perhaps had hidden side effects she wasn't aware of. You know, you'd think if she was in the control
Hopefully a
room
shiny
of
I need,
radiation
like
poisoning,
Pouchlet.
this would have been done in a supervised
Or
environment.
Humbler, or
Radaway
Eater,
ready for
Red
an emergency.
Female,
It's very weird.
or Gulliot.
SwordQuest, the author of the Fallout Wiki's page on pre-war ghouls, is of the opinion that Dr. Roberts, the guy directing the experiment, may have also been the doctor Eddie Winter was working with. The connection is rather tenuous. They're both located
that actually
in
makes
East
sense.
Boston. And given the medical staff's ambivalent response, they were probably bound to learn a thing or two about ghouls anyway. Nonetheless, let's move on from this humble RA
and discuss some of the rather shocking revelations made by the Automaton DLC on this matter. Because, boy, does it have some serious implications on pre-war ghoulification. They aren't as discussed as they should be. Released in March of 2016, Automatron was Fallout 4's first major DLC, and is often its most overlooked. While it introduced a few new locations, which will be relevant to this video, it didn't really send us to any new lands in the fashion of Far Harbor or Nuka World. Automatron's story instead centered around the recent emergence of a mysterious new villain, calling themselves the Mechanist, who had recently unleashed a wave of hostile robots upon the Commonwealth, who have been wreaking havoc on trade routes and settlements. The sole survivor would be tasked with tracking down the Mechanist and putting an end to their reign of terror, in a brief 3 to 6 hour long story. Along the way, we would be able to recruit an assortment of our own robotic companions, and we're given some truly neat customization options, which served as the DLC's big selling point, really. Anyway, at the climax of the questline, we would track down the Mechanist to their lair, an old secret research lab and factory located beneath a Robco sales and service building.
Of course it's Robco.
The character, and they would reveal their true identity. Turns out the evil Mechanist was actually a well-meaning woman named Isabella Cruz, whom, after discovering this facility a few years back, decided to mass-produce an army of robots to purge the Commonwealth of raiders and super mutants. She never intended for her creations to harm civilians, though. She thought she was saving the wasteland from evil, not manifesting...
What was that? I heard a shiny.
Suffice to say, Isabella is horrified to learn that a bug in their code has caused her automated legions to indiscriminately attack and pillage the peoples of the Boston area. She will recoil in horror upon learning this news and beg for forgiveness and a chance to atone. The sole survivor will be given the choice between forgiving Miss Cruz for her horrible mistake and granting mercy, or, well, doing the opposite. Whatever the case, the real reason I bring this whole storyline up is something that's sort of tangentially revealed at the climax of the quest. You see, as we stormed the facility and begun to break through the automated defenses into the subsections, the sole survivor would quickly learn that more than just a generic robot assembly...
Okay, yeah, that's gonna level them up freaking 4 times.
Indeed, as terminals reveal, Robco has a secret partnership
nobody learns
with
work
the
up.
US government to supply them with a number of prisoners who various experiments and operations were being performed on within the complex. The terminals don't get into the exact
Listen up how it works.
Doing. We only know that inmates were being provided by the Fed, and that the U.S. military seems to have also had a presence.
I'll probably continue the shiny head off camera.
Supervising Robco's operations. The environmental storytelling, if you will, seems to suggest that the majority of the inmates were having their brains harvested for the creation of robo-brain automatrons. However, some met a different, though perhaps creepier fate.
Not cool.
After the sole survivor made their way out of the bunker after confronting the Mechanist, they'd stroll through what is essentially a small prison with several
I still got like
ghouls
13 minutes.
Trapped behind iron bars in cages, and some even strapped to medical beds being prepared for transportation. What on earth? What are feral ghouls doing in this Robco facility from before the war? At first glance, you can almost explain this away by arguing that maybe the creatures in these cages weren't ghoulified until after the bombs fell. Like, maybe these were just normal human inmates that only turned after the Great War kicked off and rads began trickling into the facility. Never mind the fact that the facility is explicitly sealed airtight. Well, for better or worse, any doubts one may have will soon fade as the player enters the research labs, where, in one specific laboratory called RoboBrain R&D, the sole survivor will encounter several petrified feral ghouls embalmed in test
Oh, that's not.
chambers. Indeed, Robco
Ew.
and the old US government were clearly using this facility in part to experiment on feral ghouls before the Great War, seemingly in an attempt to integrate them
Ew.
into the RoboBrain project.
Where are their clothes?
Also, in this facility, a super mutant head can be found in a jar, which is itself a massive revelation because it may suggest a broader link between this facility and the FEV virus, or maybe they just imported the head from a different government facility, but I digress.
Probably.
You get the idea. This
Oh,
place is a big
chill.
deal. Robco in the US were
Little
messing
deal.
around with ghouls in a serious, secretive research capacity. Sadly, however, despite the dramatic things we see, none of the terminals comment on the ghoul or super mutant experiments. They all pertain exclusively to the broader RoboBrain project and are extremely vague at that. Presumably, they were trying to study how feral ghoul brains would work in RoboBrain models, but nothing's really confirmed. Additionally, if ghouls were being used for such niche experiments going on, one can assume that there was probably similar work being done on ghoulification across the country and broader old world. Presumably, researchers must have had a reasonably good idea of how ghouls were created if Robco was seriously considering integrating them into the RoboBrain project.
Facts.
They wouldn't run all of these tests if they weren't confident that a vast supply could be secured. Furthermore, this isn't even the only Robco facility where we can
Of
find
course not.
evidence of pre-war ghouls.
It's Robco.
In Fallout 76, in the southeastern region of the map, players can stumble upon a site known as the Robco Research Center, a massive laboratory where the company and its military partners were conducting research on various robots and vehicles. When we encounter it in Appalachia, it'll be heavily guarded by an army of automated defenders.
Oh, Appalachia. Oh, this is
A
freaking.
few waves of Mr.
76.
Gutsy Protectatrons. Inside the building
Okay, it's
are the
daytime
remains
now.
of various scientists and folks in military fatigues, huddled around their incomplete projects. Most of the stuff here isn't super significant. They seem to have been conducting some tests with auto turrets, building Protectatrons, playing around with RoboBrains, all very normal Robco activities.
Exactly.
However, within the structure's basement, we'll find something a little more to our tastes. The subterranean section consists of a small laboratory built around a trapped feral ghoul in an isolated armored room. Indeed, they had a ghoul stuck down here which they were researching. A holotape in the room provides some context, though it's extremely vague. Take a listen.
Sergey, I don't know what you think you heard, or who you think you heard it from, but we are not, I repeat, not conducting experiments on overcoming pain threshold tolerance. Nor, and I cannot stress this enough, nor are we prototyping appendages for so-called Mr. Torturers for any agency of the government. And even if we
Okay.
were, which we aren't,
Cap.
it wouldn't be torture. It's improved interrogation. This is America, for Christ's sake.
The context clues around here seem to suggest that the scientists were shocking the creature. In response to pain or electrical stimuli, their ultimate aim seems unclear. Robco is also a particularly interesting company who have been working on these projects.
The third shiny Skeeto. I'll give it away later.
Robert House was alerted to the imminence of the Great War early, and spent extensive time and resources trying to develop a protocol to cheat death and extend his own life ad infinitum. Of course, rather than turn himself into a ghoul, House ultimately opted to make use of an advanced cybernetic cryonics chamber to achieve his own longevity aims. Still, though,
Yeah, put himself in the internet.
by the Automatron DLC and this facility we find in Fallout 76 seem to prove that House and his company were at least very much aware of ghoulification, and who knows what else they might have been doing with that information. But regardless, with those final revelations, we have completed our catalog of known pre-war ghouls, right? From Desmond Lockhart to Wayne Gorski, to Assistant Peters to Eddie Winter, and finally the dozens of unfortunate test subjects held by the Robco Company. We've done it all and arrived at the pretty solid conclusion that pre-war ghoulification must have been well known to many of the elites and governments of the old world, and that there seems to be a hidden X factor, perhaps genetic or FEV related, that kept ghoulification rare and out of sight to the common man.
Yeah.
So, we're done, right?
Nope.
Well, we would be if
we didn't have 6 more minutes in this video.
One final, difficult to place piece to this puzzle. You see, in Fallout 3's Dunwich building, a corporate office on the southeastern edges of the map, the Lone Wanderer can investigate the corporate headquarters of a pre-war mining company known as Dunwich Borers LLC.
Oh, not this place.
Who, it's later revealed,
The
were
Dunwich.
secretly enamored in a series of bizarre occult rituals, attempting
Yep.
to summon and discover strange eldritch gods.
Like the
When we
interloper.
visit their office building, we find it infested with feral ghouls. And inside will be a series of holotapes left behind by a man named Jamie, who evidently came here a while back in search of his lost father. As we progress through the compound and uncover more and more of Jamie's holotapes, we literally listen to him start to ghoulify and lose his mind. Something in this building was transforming him.
Oh
At the
no.
bottom of the structure, we'll discover a large
was a
subterranean
tweaker.
cavern with a strange obelisk being worshipped
Yeah, that
by an
freaking thing.
assortment of feral ghouls. And that Jamie guy will also be down here, ghoulified, and he'll turn hostile upon detecting us. The obelisk down here actually does emit radiation, but the dosage is small, like 1 or 2 rads, and you have to get really close. Seemingly well below the 10 picometers Dr.
Ew.
Barrows implies is necessary to trigger ghoulification. So, what's going on down here? Why is this occult obelisk turning people into ghouls, and why are ghouls so drawn to it? Later on, Fallout 4 introduced a new location, simply called Dunwich Borers, which was a large mine owned by the company, where the player would experience bizarre, supernatural flashbacks
Like we're high.
to a paranormal presence.
Don't smoke.
It, too,
I'm not
was
condone.
swarming with ghouls, just all over the place. Towards the bottom of the facility, we'd have one final, particularly dramatic flashback that seems to have depicted an occult sacrifice with a captive audience, and when that vision ended, we'd be attacked by the ghoulified participants.
Let's do the
The
tweakers.
structure would also reveal a small flooded hole, which we could swim down to discover an irradiated temple-like structure, where a unique blade called Kremva's Tooth could be acquired, serving as our reward for clearing out the dungeon. Nearby the blade would
Dungeon?
also be a pair of mini-nukes, which must have been put down here by the Dunwich cultists. Furthermore, all throughout the complex, we can actually find a few mini-nukes cleverly tucked away in dark corners. Perhaps this is just Bethesda's way of rewarding curious players, or perhaps it's symbolic of a deeper meaning. Was the pre-war Dunwich
The meaning of the
company
tweakers.
deliberately honoring this site with mini-nukes?
Yes.
Why? You get the idea. There's this weird association between radiation, ghoulification, and some of the Lovecraftian sites across the games that are difficult to square. Maybe Bethesda is just using ghouls in these situations because they're the most fitting assets they have in their library, right? Like, ghouls are the most zombie-like, spooky horror enemy in the game. It would make sense for them to put these in their sort of haunted house locations without there being a big, genuine, deep lore connection here.
Are you a Roblox fanatic?
No.
Microsoft Rewards has a brand new way for you to
IDGA.
I would be inclined to endorse this theory, the idea that Bethesda is just using spooky assets without much meaning, if it weren't for the fact that at the bottom of the sunken hole thing in
This is
the
my mom.
Dunwich quarry, we can find this giant metallic eye staring back at us.
My mom.
We've talked about this eye before extensively on the
Yes.
channel, so I won't
Yep.
get too deep into it,
But basically, if the player no-clips around it, or just takes a look at its asset ID in the creation kit, you'll realize that this eye is a part of a much larger metallic head bust sculpture. And it's a bust that we see displayed
It's a
across
what?
several prominent Fallout 4 and 76 locations, including the Appalachian Robco Robotics facility.
Of course.
Overlooking the complex in 76 is one of these same metallic assets, just menacingly supervising the factory.
It's a god.
It makes you wonder if perhaps Robco and the old US government had some knowledge of what was going on in these Dunwich quarries, or even not necessarily that, just some vague understanding of the occult forces behind the world, and was actively engaged with those. Perhaps this X factor with ghoulification isn't genetic or FEV related at all. It's something supernatural, something eldritch in nature. Alas, with that, now I have finally said my piece. Ladies and gentlemen, today we talked about the origins of ghoulification, investigated its potential causes, explored several examples of ghouls who transformed before the war, and learned of strange experiments going on under the supervision of the Robco company before the war. And finally, dealt with the curious potential Lovecraftian influences on it as well. I think it's safe to say that the mysteries of ghoulification, and specifically its relevance in the pre-war, are far more mysterious questions than initially meets the eye. Thanks for watching, everybody.
No problem. Thanks for making the video. Next is the sun vanished.
Physics assignment due tomorrow? Haven't even started.
And it's apparently freaking a text-to-speech analog horror. So, yeah, I'm being attacked by Izzy Gaming. Who are you? Are you an AI in my chat? I mean, considering you said best viewers on streamboo.com, you're banned. You're banned. Nah. You got Prime Gaming, you're a freaking streamer. You post something that is definitely freaking AI. Freaking bullcrap in my comment. Yeah, you have 3 followers. Never even gone live. Yeah, you're banned. You're banned. No, I'm not dealing with that. No AI freaking or whatever the hell in my chat room, please. So, if y'all enjoy the stream, hit the follow button for more, so I can do more of these. Tomorrow I'm gonna do more shiny hunting live. Off stream I'm gonna shiny hunt a ton. Put hundreds of hours into this game. Like if I go to my save data now, 108 hours, and most of it is shiny hunting. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, for the YouTube people, if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Stopper8. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Stopper57. What else is there to say? I don't think I got much else to say. So, join the Discord. Link is in the description of both the Twitch and the YouTube video. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and raid Simba. Simbazy. You make it look easy. So yeah, see you guys next time. Peace.